answering what is lifecycle marketing and how is it leveraged as a competitive advantage. Today on the call we have Troy Burk. He is the CEO and founder of Right On Interactive. We have Lori Grass. She is the Vice President of Sales and Alliance for Right On Interactive. And then we have myself. I am a principal with marketingIO. My background is 15 plus years of experience in technology integration projects, leveraging such methodology as Agile, Scrum, RAD, ITIL-based methodologies. I've been focused in enterprise software and services to clients mid and large, managing the development and integration for such technology as Oracle, IBM, Microsoft, third-party cloud applications, social media, B2B, and mobile apps. In addition to marketingIO, we have a principal. His name is Joe Rizzo. With a marketing background. He's a marketing technologist with 25 plus years in digital marketing. He specializes in B2B marketing with a variety of verticals, from startups to Fortune 1000. Joe is also an author, speaker, and a consultant. In late 2014, moving into 2015, we launched marketingIO, bringing both expertise together, both marketing and technology, to fill in those gaps. Our primarily service deliveries around strategy, integration, and support. In the process of finding a platform to deliver our services, we evaluated and implemented a variety of marketing automation systems. And we came across Right On Interactive's platform and saw a distinct competitive advantage, primarily in the technology design, the ease of use within segmentation and lifecycle marketing. So today we'll be discussing the new dimensions of marketing automation, but before we do, I want you to be aware of a few webinar functions here. To the right side of your screen, you'll see the control panel. To free up space on your desktop, you can collapse the control panel. Questions during the webinar, you can either enter your questions into the questions pane, and one of the panelists or the organizer will answer. Just type in your question and click send. We'll answer as many questions as possible at the end of the event, and if we do not get to your question, we will respond via email. One last item, we are in broadcast mode, and all attendees are muted. You can hear us, but we cannot hear you. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Lori Grass. She's the Vice President of Sales and Alliances. Hi, Lori, can you take it from here?
Hey, thanks, Mike. I sure can. I appreciate the introduction. So I am Lori Grass. I'm the VP of Sales and Alliances at Right On Interactive, and I am delighted to spend the next hour with everybody today. One of the things I'm most passionate about, I've been in the sales game a long time, but really love how marketing technology has changed the landscape, not only for sales departments, but just businesses as a whole. So this is probably a great opportunity to thank the folks at marketingIO. As most of you know, the great technologies that you use are only as good as the strategies that power them. And certainly our friends at marketingIO do a great job of helping companies be successful when they're using all types of marketing technology tools. So Troy, you want to introduce yourself and we'll go ahead and get started.
You bet, you bet. I'm Troy Burk. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Right On Interactive, and I've been in the marketing technology space for over 20 years, and during this tenure, I've helped thousands of companies generate more revenue by leveraging technology, aligning sales and marketing, and improving processes. I started the company in 2006, and I did so because I saw a unique opportunity out there to help companies find greater success by focusing on the entire customer experience. And a big part of this webinar and the information we're going to share with you here today is going to cover such information.
All right, thanks. So here's just a high-level agenda for you. I won't get into the weeds on this, but we do have about half of our registrants today that said that they're not using a marketing automation tool today. So we've got just a couple of slides to talk about the current landscape of what's going on in marketing automation, and then we're going to spend the bulk of our time talking about customer lifecycle marketing, which is really that new dimension in the next generation of marketing automation. So you'll see on several of the slides our little Twitter bird here. So if that's something that you're into tweeting, it's always kind of fun to be interactive during a webinar. So feel free to tweet out stats or just interesting things that you may hear us talking about. And you can see the handles here for marketingIO as well as Right On Interactive. So let's go ahead and jump into things. And first area we want to explore is the value of marketing automation today. So traditionally, marketing automation tools have really excelled on the lead side of the house, and that's lead generation, lead nurturing, lead scoring. And so you see this stat and really fairly dramatic results that folks have been able to see. Companies that excel at lead nurturing generate 50% more sales-ready leads at a 33% lower cost. And I think the big value play here is in a couple of different areas. One is, you know, when somebody comes to your website and they download a white paper, we now have this ability to give them an immediate response. But then there's also that opportunity that if somebody doesn't want to talk to your sales team yet, they just really wanted the information about the white paper, you've got that opportunity to nurture them over a period of time. And then the second piece is certainly the efficiency side of it, because it's being powered by a technology, so you're taking all of those manual processes and now you're able to automate them. And so you look at how companies that are using marketing automation today are able to outperform their competitors, and again, pretty dramatic, the kind of results that folks have seen in the last few years. And so the automation, what that does is it allows for a consistent process. So, you know, used to be when I started my sales career, Troy, it was like that wing and a prayer, right? When marketing flipped the lead over to the sales team, it was like, okay, let's cross our fingers and hope that the sales rep is actually going to follow through. And that strategy was only as good as the individual sales reps. So now they're able to control that experience so that every lead that gets exposure to the brand is going to have that same consistent theme.
Yep, exactly.
And then the third area here is sales growth, and that, of course, being a salesperson is what I really appreciate, and much of that is due to engagement. So you see improving of sales cycles, you see improvement in quota achievement, and it's like, who wouldn't want that? I think most businesses that I know, those are areas that they struggle with. And so the type of engagement that you can have, visibility that you can have with marketing automation systems includes things like the anonymous and identified visitor reports. You know, that's one of the favorite features of our sales team, and we have a best practice that we send it to them every morning at 7 o'clock. So when they get up and they're looking at their email, they can see exactly who's been on the website in the last 24 hours, both identified and anonymous. And do you remember a couple of years ago, we had a Fortune 20 company that showed up on our identified visitor report? And I think it was you that said, you're never going to close them. And I flipped it over to one of our inside sales folks. They called the CMO who had downloaded our Lifecycle ebook, and they responded. We got the appointment, and 6 weeks later, they came on board as a customer.
It's a true story. It's a true story. So yeah, absolutely. Visibility, consistency, and measurement are the things here that marketing automation bring companies. And it's a lot of that low-hanging fruit of just not having anything in place at all. Putting something in place today gives these companies clear advantage over the competition.
Yeah, so that's the good news, right? But with every new technology, there are some challenges. And I think the first one is just adoption in general. You know, high-tech companies have been using marketing automation system now for years and fairly successfully, and a lot of the stats that you saw on the previous page really came from those types of companies. But outside of the high-tech industries, only 3% adoption. And I think there's a couple of reasons behind that. And, you know, I'm out talking to prospects every single day, and so I hear what some of the barriers are. And the first thing is data. And there's always just insecurity about the state that the data is in. And I was talking to a prospect actually just this week, and I asked him, so tell me a little bit about where your data is housed. And he said, well, the sales reps use Salesforce for their CRM, and my customer service team uses SAP as their ERP system. It's where we put our purchasing data. And then we have the box. And I was like, what's the box? And I'm thinking it's some homegrown system that they nicknamed the box. And he said, literally, it's a 3-foot by 3-foot box that sits in a closet, and at the end of all the trade shows, which they do 50 a year, they come and they dump all the trade show registrants into the box. And they have about 5 years worth of data in the box, literally, with paper registrants. So I get that data can occasionally be an issue, so we're going to talk about that on the next slide a little bit more. But the other issue is personnel. And sometimes it's we don't have enough people because we need to create content now, we need to build emails, we need to run the system, but sometimes it's the wrong personnel. So you've got a bunch of right-brain marketers who are very creative, but they don't quite have that technical expertise in the digital landscape. Second area, and I was shocked by this stat, but keep in mind we're a lifecycle marketing provider, and so we deal with the customer side of the house all the time, but only 8% of companies are using marketing automation to nurture their existing customers. Everything else is just lead-centric, and it makes sense because many of those tools and the great stats that you saw on the previous slide, they were created specifically for leads. I think the other strategy side of things is that it may be less of, it's not that they don't have a strategy at all, but it's just a strategy that's kind of a poor strategy. So what they've done is using it for perhaps a glorified email tool. One of our recent customers used to use a marketing automation platform that was a great platform, very robust, lots of bells and whistles. They were spending $50,000 a year to send a monthly e-newsletter to their entire database, which they certainly could have done through MailChimp or Constant Contact, which are good email tools. So really being able to use those systems is a bit of a challenge, as you see here in this next slide. So 85% of B2B marketers indicated that they don't feel like they're using their marketing automation platform to the greatest extent that they could be. And so that gets down to the execution. So if you've got a good foundation and you have a strategy, you still have to do it. You got to execute the game. And I think one of the issues that I see is people try to slay the dragon. And what I mean by that is that they try to bite off too much right out of the gate. And I'm a big advocate of doing a phased approach and then having quick wins along the way. We do a lifecycle workshop for our customers when they come on board during the implementation process. And I was meeting with one of the folks a couple of weeks ago, and I said, okay, so let's talk about the strategy and what you really want to do once we get implemented. And they said, well, we've got 16 audience segments that we want to build, and we want to do a separate campaign for each one, and we want it to have 5 to 7 touches. And I said, how many people do you have in your marketing department? They were like, 2. And so I was excited for their enthusiasm, but the reality is that they would have set themselves up to fail if they really went through that. So we spent a good amount of time talking about prioritizing and really helping them understand how they could do a phased approach and really have those quick wins along the way.
You know, I was thinking about the stat that you have up there with only 3% of the adoption in non-tech companies. And then the second stat you have on there of 8% of the companies are using it for the customer side of the house. And maybe it's the fact that technology companies are just growing so rapidly. The focus is definitely on new customer acquisition, right? It's on new customers, where a lot of the other industries, they're more mature and they just have a bigger customer base.
Right.
And they really haven't applied marketing automation really at all.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let's jump into some solutions. So I do want to touch on the data side of things, because to use any marketing technology tool, especially lifecycle marketing, marketing automation, you do need to have data. And sometimes that's a stumbling block, that people feel like their databases are not big enough. And so if you do need to grow your database, I'm always a fan of building it versus buying it. You can certainly buy purchased lists, but I would step into that world cautiously. It's okay to buy a list to give to your inside sales team to prospect from, kind of one person at a time, but you don't want to start batching and blasting to a purchase list, because nothing will get you blacklisted quicker than doing that. So when you think about building it yourself, you can certainly do some incentives and register to win programs. And I think oftentimes B2B marketers think that strategy doesn't work in their world, but it's funny, I got recently a survey from a social media tool that I've been testing, and they offered me a $10 Starbucks card if I filled out the survey.
So did you fill it out?
Of course. I love my iced mint tea coffee. So yeah, you know, people will give information if you ask, and you give them an incentive to do so. Certainly you can also use your gated content, so you ask somebody for their first name, last name, email in order to give them some valuable information that they want to consume. And then events, we'll talk about that a little bit later on, are certainly a great place to gather some data. The second issue that I hear quite often on the data side is the cleanup. And in fact, I recently was talking to a prospect who said, you know, I really like the idea of lifecycle marketing. I think I definitely want to do it, but I've got to get my data cleaned up prior to doing so. And I just air quoted cleaned up because I hear that all the time. And it's a very common thing that people think, okay, well, let me hire a bunch of temps or interns and we'll have them, you know, get the database all cleaned up and then we'll be good to go. And the reason that's such a bad strategy is because you never train your sales reps to really understand what's important when it comes to keeping your data clean. So that's great, do your one-time data cleanup, but then set your best practices to do some good ongoing data cleanup. I looked at a data mining map with one of our customers, and they had 92 states in the U.S. in their database. And there are not 92 states in the U.S., but they did things like they left it in an open field. So they had Illinois spelled out, but then they also had IL and ILL. So just having standard formats with drop down is really helpful. And then also determine what's your must-have versus your nice-to-have. I'm a sales rep. You tell me I have to fill out 20 fields in my CRM record, and I'm probably not going to do it. You ask me to fill out 5 fields, you've got a much better likelihood that I'm actually going to make that happen.
You know, and one thing to add to that, Lori, is a few years ago I was at a conference and the Sales and Marketing Institute talked about an alarming stat that I heard for the first time, which was that over a 22-month period of time, people change jobs. So even though you may have these standardized fields in your database, and you may have the person's name and title and email address and phone numbers, 33% of them are going to change jobs with over, you know, a 22-month period of time. And there's some industries that number at that time frame is even faster. And then on the same scale, the same period of time, another 33% are going to change roles within a company.
Wow, no kidding.
So within 22 months of what you thought was your clean data?
Yeah, totally out of date.
It is out of date.
Right,
yeah.
right. So that one-time cleanup would not be a good strategy. Yeah, no, that's good. And then the last area is enriching data. So I said I'm not necessarily a fan of buying lists, but I am a fan of paying to make your own data better. And so there are some good append companies out there that you can get 3 to 5 additional data points on your database for one cost, and so you may be able to get title or industry or additional information that you don't have. Progressive profiling, which is a tool that most marketing automation systems have, is another good way. So what that means is the first time I come to your website, I give you my first name, last name, email. Second time I come to get a piece of content, you recognize it's me, and you ask me for my title and my industry and my zip code. Last thing to think about on the data side is don't spam folks. If somebody has been in your database and they haven't opened or clicked through on an email in a year, chances are they don't want to hear from you via email. So you might try suppressing those folks for a period of time and then do a re-engagement campaign. And I love to do re-engagement campaigns that are focused on a profile center and asking people, what information do you want to hear from us? Usually gives you some good information. So Troy, we've talked a bit about the current landscape, the data side. Now, why don't you share with us a little bit about lifecycle marketing and how that can kind of help and really look at that next generation?
Yeah, many years ago, a mentor of mine gave me some good advice, and he told me that, he said, hey, Troy, in business, you need to keep things simple to understand and simple to administer, right? So simple to understand and simple to administer. And customer lifecycle marketing is just that. You know, every company has a journey that prospects and customers go through with the brand, from awareness through appreciation. And the entire organization can get behind this. It's not just marketing or the demand gen team. Mm-hmm. It's looking at the entire journey from, leads to new customers being onboarded, new customers buying, upselling, cross-selling, and thinking about that. How can we impact this? Product, client success, marketing, sales. The entire organization can be aligned around the customer. Right. And thinking, what can we do to get people to become more entrenched, more engaged, and more of a supporter for our brand? So lifecycle marketing is more of this macro view of looking at your business from a simple framework.
So would you say it's a business solution as opposed to just a marketing solution?
It's absolutely a business solution, right? I think companies even more so today that comes, marketing doesn't necessarily control the brand, it's the customers. And
Right.
if you're not creating raving fans as a business, you're gonna pay, in the long run for it. So yeah, and the other thing is that remember that Lifecycle is bigger than a campaign. The majority of the people that are in your database, or even the ones that you're engaging with, whether that's client success, sales, or marketing, they're not necessarily in a campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So lifecycle marketing gives you this framework that's easy to understand, or the foundation, as you had mentioned there before. And from that, that's where you get the strategy, the resources, and the tactics can be deployed against the lifecycle stages. So on this slide here, Lori, it talks about the number one asset you have. What do you think that might be?
Well, I'm guessing, given the slide, it's your customers. Ding, ding, ding. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you did. You did. We all understand that lead generation and lead conversion are important. But, just looking at these stats, they dramatically point out the importance of continuing to build that relationship with the customer after the purchase. So it's 6 or 7 times more costly to obtain a new customer than to retain an existing one. And then, of course, there's the 80-20 rule. 80% of your revenue will come from just 20% of your customers. I often ask companies, answer this question for me. Last year in your business, how much revenue came from existing customers compared to how much came from net new customers?
Mm.
And for an established business, the percent of revenue from existing business can be as high as 80 to 90%.
Yeah, I believe that.
And then I ask them, okay, what percent of your marketing budget is allocated to customer retention and growth? And they tell me the majority of the spend is on acquisition,
Right.
and sometimes nearly all of it is. So basically, this is just pointing out there is simply just a huge missed opportunity here on the customer side of automation. So one thing I want to talk about here is a little bit of the difference between marketing automation and customer lifecycle marketing. So there's a lot of buzz out there with the term lifecycle marketing, and it's become pretty popular here in probably the last 12 to 18 months, and a lot of people are mentioning this term. But there's a few things to understand that's a little bit different. We hear a lot of marketing automation, or I guess a lot of email marketing companies say, hey, we do lifecycle marketing. But for them, it's really focused on a campaign, or it's even the lifecycle of an email subscriber. So they send a series of 5 emails. The first email is the beginning of the lifecycle, and the 5th email is the end. Don't make any mistake about this, right? This is a nurturing campaign.
Right.
It's not customer lifecycle marketing,
Right?
It's a lifecycle of a campaign, I guess, if you wanted to define it that way. And then as far as marketing automation, you can say that a lot of the features that you would see in a marketing automation platform or lifecycle marketing would be very similar, but not all of the features that are in lifecycle marketing are necessarily in a marketing automation platform. Okay?
Yeah.
So customer lifecycle marketing, it's really that journey that a person takes with a brand. So it's the time that they are a lead all the way through being a brand advocate. And it's a single view of that customer through all forms of engagement, regardless if that's sales, marketing, in-person, online, wherever it is, it's a single view of them. All right, so moving on to this slide here, and let me drill into talk a little bit about how lifecycle marketing works. And what you see here on the screen, this is a sample journey that someone may take with your brand. In this example, there are 5 stages which may represent a typical B2B journey. These green boxes you see on the screen, those are different customer lifecycle stages, from attraction all the way through appreciation. And those blue dots you see, those are individual people or companies, and they're plotted on this map based on the y-axis of the vertical against the ideal customer fit, and on the x-axis of the horizontal axis, that's their level of engagement, all engagement. So the folks in the top right quadrant of any one of those stages, those are the most fit, most engaged individuals or companies at that particular stage. And those metrics you see along the bottom there, the count and the percentage of contacts, if you look across your entire database, is going to tell you exactly where are all the individuals, right? And it's cool to look at this trend over time because you can take a snapshot of this every day. And am I growing people in the onboarding stage, or am I declining? And that's going to very matter of factly tell you the future health of your business, right? If you can see the trends that you're not adding net new people and you're falling off, the stage and duration is how many you convert to the next stage and how long do they stay there. And when you think about this as a business, is if you have a group of people that are stuck and the duration is increasing, why is that? Is it the wrong people? Is it the wrong messaging? Maybe it's the wrong product. Right? And that becomes a business solution or a business opportunity, which then helps develop business strategies to try to design around moving people to the next level.
You know, I was in an unveil with one of our customers, and they saw their map for the first time. In their particular scenario, they had 4 customer stages as opposed to 3 that we have here. 75% of their entire database was stuck in the second customer stage. And the CEO looked down the table at the CMO and said, why in the heck are we trying to fill the top of the funnel, so to speak, and get more leads in the door when we already have a relationship with 75% of our existing customers? Trust is already established. We could spend our time upselling and cross-selling. And they changed their entire go-to-market strategy based on seeing that. Pretty powerful stuff.
Absolutely. And in this example here, I'm just trying to point out that we have Kim, and Kim is in the attract stage. She has a pretty high profile score of 70, but her engagement score is 12. And then on the flip side, we have Alex over here, and he's on the onboarding stage. So he's a new customer. He's made his first purchase. He has a high profile score, and he's highly engaged. And the strategy and tactics for both Kim and Alex will be different, but we want to try to move both of them to that far right stage of appreciate. So one thing here to make this simple to understand and simple to administer is along the lines of segmentation. And when you think about, what's the easy way to do this or a framework, the first thing that a lot of our customers do is they segment their customers strictly just based on the life cycle stages. So instead of doing campaigns or communications that one size fits all, batch and blast, everyone gets it, they do very specific campaigns for the attract stage, the convert stage, the onboarding stage, the expand stage, and the call to action is to move them to the next stage, right? So a simple, easy way to do this is to segment your audience first based on strictly just the life cycle stage. That makes it very easy to understand who you're targeting and what you're hoping that they're going to accomplish.
Well, and that's a really good next step from somebody that has just been doing batch and blast and everybody getting the same messaging. That whole segmentation piece is something that I think folks struggle with. This is just kind of an easy, logical way to be able to segment the database.
Yeah, and then the other example there is scoring. So if you took one of those different stages, you see the X and Y axis of the quadrants there. You're able to say the folks on the right are engaged, the folks on the left are not. So you might have a different strategy on how you might engage your sales team with the folks that are on the far right side of those different stages, or on the left-hand side, they need more nurturing, and marketing is going to be maybe more involved. And for the fits that people that are maybe a poor fit, maybe you don't communicate with them at all, or maybe you pass them to a channel partner where maybe it's a good fit for their business. And the last one is personas. So, as companies become more sophisticated, maybe they are grouping their customers together by demographic or firmographic data, and they're wanting to deliver a very personalized customer experience, and they are providing different treatments based on sort of who these folks are and sort of how they look and maybe what their interests might be.
Great. So now we're going to segue into really drilling into each one of the life cycle stages. And whether you're utilizing a marketing automation platform today, or whether you're considering a lifecycle marketing platform, or you're just doing things manually, there should be some nuggets that you can pick up as we go through and talk about these different stages. And keep in mind, to kind of echo what Troy said, it's bigger than a campaign. Sure, you can start with doing a campaign for each one of these stages, but it's also what the mission and what the goal is really that you want to accomplish with each of these stages. So our first one here is the attract stage, and typically this is where you just want to make folks aware and you want them to consider your particular brand. This is not the time to sell. That's the big cardinal #1 rule, right? Don't throw up all over people about your features and your benefits at this stage, because you're probably just not ready to buy. This is a great time to establish thought leadership. So for Right On Interactive, when we're working with folks that are at the attract stage, We just want you to come to our website and consume information and see us as the authority on lifecycle marketing. I'm working with a customer right now who has really done what I think is an excellent job of identifying the problems that people have that are in this particular stage. You know, that's what a lot of it is about, that in order to really attract them to want to know more, you have to understand what are their concerns and what are their issues. And it's a manufacturer, a seal manufacturer. They manufacture seals, pumps, and valves. And one of the big pain points that they found out is that seal failure is a big issue, because you can imagine if a seal fails, it can cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So what they've done is they've created this app in the marketplace, and it shows diagrams and pictures of what a healthy seal looks like versus a seal that's getting ready to blow, so that they know that they can save themselves. And so everybody's clamoring for this app. And although it may not sound terribly sexy, when you're in that industry, it's a pretty meaningful piece that they've created. And so now if you want to buy a seal, you're probably going to go to that authority that has given you so much help with this app that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you first think of attraction, it's like we got to drive awareness and get leads in the door. But a lot of what you're saying here, Lori, is around the customer sort of understanding and having that awareness of what their problems are.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so a lot of the thought leadership and communications around here are some problems that people have that once they identify that they have that problem, they want to solve it, then you have them in your process, and they probably can move through the different stages there in the relationship.
Yeah, for sure. And at this stage, you may only have somebody's first name and last name. You may not even have their email address yet. So that's where direct mail and register to win programs can really come into play. Events are certainly a good opportunity for that as well. And you really want to think about your website as the hub for all of the communication. So a really good exercise to do with your leadership team and with your marketing team is to look at what are all of your lead sources out there. Where are those lead sources leading people to? And ultimately, is that content going to be gated or not gated? And ultimately, how do you really connect with these folks? And because we use the anonymous and identified visitors at this point, that's why it's so important to get them to your website so that you can cookie those machines and really have visibility to who's reading the content. So it's awesome if your blog is out there on a lot of online medias, but if you don't have a call to action on that blog, then it's kind of a wasted piece of content. Events are also a really great way, but only if you follow up with them, right? Don't be like the company, like the guy that had the big box, right? That's not a good strategy to spend 50 grand on an event and not follow up on your leads. I was helping one of our customers put together a trade show strategy, and we were looking at pre, during, and post. And they had a great idea for the pre-campaign, and they were hosting a party. But instead of emailing or direct mailing the tickets to the party, they asked people to stop by their booth to pick up the tickets. So that gave them one more engagement touch point. So they send out promotion ahead of time to let them know to stop by the booth. And then during the show, they used the show's hashtag and also really connected via social media. And they looked at who the people were that were tweeting the most and invited them to the booth for a free gift. Well, then they got lots of buzz and free promotion off of that because they were paying attention to the folks that were tweeting the most. And then post-show, they did 3 nurturing tracks, but they segmented them based on what the area of interest was when folks came into their booth.
Nice story.
Yeah, thank you. So with the convert stage, oftentimes there may be a third lead stage in here. Right now, for purposes of our illustration, we just have attract and convert. Sometimes our customers will have an initiate stage that's between the attract and convert stage. But when you think about the convert stage, you're typically talking to the customer, the prospect at this point in time, and they're engaged with your sales team. And this is the time that it's okay to start talking about those features and benefits in your product. And the goal here is really to get them to understand the value that your products bring to the table. But keep in mind, not only are they looking at you, but they're probably also looking at your competitors. So that's where it becomes really important to introduce things like case studies and use cases and how you've helped customers that look like them. Right On Interactive was looking for a CRM system at the end of last year. And so we started out, initially we were just Google searching CRM systems for technology companies. And that was when we were kind of in that search marketing phase. But then once we had our short list, we moved to discovery phase. And then we were looking for things like reviews and what kind of customers do these folks already deal with? Do they look like us? Do they not look like us? And so really think about the targeted kind of communications, because at this stage you know more about the prospect, and so the communication should really be spoon-feeding them information that's relevant to them.
Yeah, and or giving the sales team the tools they really need to try to move those customers to the next level, and potentially you want marketing to back off some of those nurturing campaigns if you're the salesperson. If you're engaging with them and you just had a meeting, you're delivering a proposal, last thing you need is marketing to send an email saying, hey, this is what we provide.
Yes, absolutely. That is one of my big pain points as a salesperson. Back the heck off marketing if I'm like getting close to closing the deal, right? And I do think one of the communications that can be effective in the convert stage, and this speaks to what we talked about earlier, that content can sometimes be a big pain point for folks. When you send a communication, it can still be automated, but it looks like it's just coming from my Gmail account. So it's got my signature on the bottom, and it may say something like, hey, Troy, just read this article, so I thought about you. The article may or may not be something that we've written. It could be curated content that we think might be of value to the audience, and that's a really simple communication that can still be automated, but it looks highly personal.
And yeah, I think this is a great example of where you're pulling in marketing and sales and really driving that alignment with how sales totally identifies where they are in the process, and that impacts how marketing is going to communicate.
Yeah. So moving on to the onboard stage, sadly, this is where a lot of companies stop marketing, and I think that's a really missed opportunity, because you get one chance to make that first great impression with the customer. And just like in most environments, keeping it simple is always a good place to start. So one of the things I like to do is talk to our new clients and say, so tell me about your onboarding process today, and what do you do? And we just whiteboard and we map out kind of step 1 through 5. This is what happens the first 30 days that somebody comes on to be a customer. We had one customer that they had a big KPI that they had a customer portal. And they knew that if somebody logged into the customer portal at least twice in the first 30 days, that they would have a really good chance of retaining that customer. So what we set up for them was just alerts to their customer service team that if it had been 7 days in and somebody hadn't logged into their portal, we'd let them know about it. And then if it's 21 days, we escalate that alert to a manager, so that we make sure that we're involving the right people within the organization to let them know that they have a brand new customer who isn't engaging with them. I think this is also a great place to have how-to videos and think about what are those kind of engagement touch points that can be interactive. So whether that's training or in some cases product specs, safety information might be important.
Yeah, no, I see this all the time as well. I mean, it's typically when people start talking about cross-sell and upsell and retention, maybe they're at a future stage and it's time for renewal, and they send out the renewal notice and the customers maybe aren't renewing, and they're like, well, how do we fix this, Troy? And the issue is not on the 30 or 60-day renewal notice. It's what didn't take place within that first 30 or 60 days during the onboarding process.
Yeah, right, exactly. Retention starts at day 1, right?
Right.
So then here's the expand stage, and this is really what Troy was talking about and kind of the heart of customer lifecycle marketing. It's taking that existing customer and expanding the relationship with them. So you have an opportunity to sell more, but it doesn't have to be on the lead acquisition side. And oftentimes I hear complaints from my VP of sales buddies that they're like, my sales reps keep calling on the same people. It's that 80-20 rule. It's the ones that they have the best relationship with, and they've dealt with them for years and years. So we roll out a new product, and they only take the information to the customer that they have the best relationship with. So that's a great way for automation in lifecycle marketing to really play a part. One of our customers is an insurance company, and their initial focal point is to sell an auto policy. And so they get folks that come on board with the auto policy, and then their land and expand model is they want to sell them a home policy or maybe a life insurance policy. Well, and 21-year-old that's living in an apartment that has an auto policy is not a candidate for home or life, right? But somebody who just purchased a home and they have a couple of children, they may be in that stage that they're starting to think about life insurance. So we use our scoring algorithm to help them identify who's the best fit, most engaged to really purchase one or the other of those additional policy lines.
You know, and I think this plays into sort of the difference of lifecycle marketing compared to just to marketing automation. And you're talking a lot about the purchasing information. So,
right.
You know, with lifecycle marketing, you have purchasing data, you have consumption data. So how much of what they purchased are they actually using?
Right.
And then you also have customer satisfaction. In all three of those elements, man, that's data you would never stick into a lead management system.
Yeah.
But you definitely would stick into a lifecycle marketing platform. And, you know, we have customers across all industries, but even like some of our distributors, they do a lot of the cross-sell. If you bought this product, we have one that is a office products distributor, and they have, if you buy, you know, a box, they'll send you the automated emails where the, you know, here's some tape to go along with it or the other accessories that go along with it. But that's leveraging the purchasing information with it. So you can automate that whole upsell, cross-sell component based on a lot of that purchasing data or consumption. You know, we have a lot of our clients that have sort of a SaaS model where if clients aren't using the product or service, they can automate different communications to try to re-engage them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and when you think about, you know, what you said earlier, just the whole strategy of how much money is spent on lead acquisition and we just forget about the customers. I mean, what a great example of what the low-hanging fruit could be there.
You got it.
Okay, the last stage that we're going to talk about is the appreciate stage. And so these are your brand loyal advocates. And these are the folks that you really want to take care of and make sure that you're treating them with the kind of respect that they deserve because they've been your customer perhaps for a long period of time. And with this particular stage, it has to be high touch because you don't want the folks in this stage to feel like they're getting the same communication that everybody else is. But just because it's high touch doesn't mean that it can't be automated, right? There's still ways that you can do that. One of our customers sends a gift basket every year on the anniversary that they do business with somebody. And that's all automated, that we send the list to their fulfillment house, and they don't have to touch it. It's set up just as you would in your campaign tool. The other thing you want to think about is what can you do to really delight and surprise these folks? I was at one of our Lifecycle workshops, and when we got to the appreciate stage, I said, what do you really want people to feel in this stage? And they said, well, I want everybody from the president of our company all the way down, we want them to know that we realize they're the lifeblood of our organization, and we just want to thank them for their business. So they decided that what they were going to do for folks in the appreciate stage is that the president of their company was going to reach out to every single customer one time a year just to simply thank them for their business. And he gets great responses to this, you know, when he picks up the phone, because how many times does the president of the company ever call and thank you for the business? So, you know, just again, thinking beyond the campaign and what you can do to really leverage those relationships. These are great customers to survey and ask their opinion because chances are they'll tell you. And so if you're getting ready to do a new product, these are great folks to bring in for a focus group.
You know, when you think about it, when what % of people do you think trust what a company's brand messaging is? I mean, you think it's high or low?
I would say probably it's pretty low if I had to venture a guess, because nobody wants to say that they're influenced by the brand message.
Yeah, I mean, of course, and branding is important. It's critical for all companies. But as far as a consumer or a buyer looking at the brand message, they're going to say, of course, you're going to say great things about your company. Where do they go to find out the truth? right? The number one place they go, it's like
they go to their friends and their family and their colleagues, right?
That's
go to
right.
a networking event. Hey.
What service do you use? What products do you like? What should I think about when I'm making this buying decision? And so that peer influence becomes more critical, and that goes back to the statement that marketing no longer controls the brand. It's your customers and that customer experience, and specifically it's the folks in this far right stage, right? Your best 80-20 customers, you need them advocating for you. You need to show a lot of appreciation for it. And if you think about marketing in years past, you know, it start on the whole awareness campaign, pass into sales and close. Today's environment, customer lifecycle marketing, instead of thinking about it from the left to the right, it's almost like you need to start from the right and go to the left.
Oh, yeah. That would almost be an easier path because you know these people so well all the way over on the right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that idea. Okay, so here we've kind of talked throughout the webinar and really encouraged you to think beyond the campaign. However, I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth here for just a minute because campaigns are still an important part of whether you're using marketing automation or lifecycle marketing. It is an important touch point. But I think one of the challenges that we see is that people get in this hurry-up mode. We got to get a campaign out the door, and I must admit we've even been guilty of that ourselves occasionally. That okay, we've got a new marketing asset. Let's get the campaign out the door without really thinking through what are the opportunities here. And I'm not going to get in the weeds on all of these, but you can see them listed 1 through 10. And we do have an asset that we're going to be sending you post-webinar that gets into a little more detail here. But think about the difference between having your marketing user build a campaign by themselves in a silo versus your team getting together and talking through what's the objective, who's it we're talking to, what are the key messages, are we really showing our value prop here, what's the different media channels, can we go beyond email, is there something else that we can tie into this campaign, because keep in mind a campaign doesn't just have to be a series of emails. Also doing a little content asset inventory. What do we already have created so that we don't have to create everything from ground zero, or what could be curated that it's somebody else's content that we might be able to use? What are the call to actions? How are we going to measure the results? Is it really about opens and clicks, or is it about how many people we've converted to become a new customer, right? Lifecycle marketing. What's the schedule? How are we going to run this? One time? What's that look like? So all 10 of these are really important questions to think through.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in some of those different life cycle stages that you went through, you could have campaigns by stage, and then you can understand which campaigns are impacting the folks that move to the next level, which ones are not.
Yeah. So you ready to wrap things up? Anything else you want to add here, Troy, before we get to our final slides?
No, let's move to the final slides.
Okay, sounds good. So I just wanted to recap kind of my favorite parts of the webinar. And so if I had to boil it down to 3 things, it would be the first one is the phased approaches with the quick wins. And so I see this time and time again with our customers. You know, I love nothing more than when I hear from our client success team that somebody paid for their license in month 2 because of, you know, some big win that happened with the anonymous and identified visitor report, or because of a, you know, particular scoring algorithm that we had set up that gave them some visibility that they didn't have before. The second is lifecycle marketing being the future. You know, I see because I've been around a long time in the sales game, I see what email marketing has done for us. I see what marketing automation has done for us. And then to truly be able to connect both with leads and customers, pretty powerful. And then last is that segmentation doesn't have to be complicated. I love that slide that you had on the segmentation piece, and that you can, again, do that in phases and be as sophisticated with segmentation as what works for your particular organization.
Right, right. Absolutely. In mine, I guess my 3 would be, don't forget about the customer, right? And the focus on the customer, thinking backwards. Who are my 80-20 customers? Am I delighting them? Am I keeping them satisfied? Are they advocating for me? Are they driving some of those reviews that are out there that people will trust more than my own marketing message? And the second one would be is that Lifecycle is a business solution, and it's not just around I need a way to nurture some email campaigns or I need to track some social media activity. It's the entire business getting focused around the customer, where they are in their relationship, what strategy, what resources, what technologies, and what processes can we align as an organization, all designed around trying to enhance this customer experience. And the last thing is the results are bigger than just opens and clicks and friends and followers. So a lot of that marketing engagement, we want more of it, right? We want more of it with more of the right fit people. But it's looking at sort of those trends that lifecycle marketing makes it really easy for us at a macro view to understand, are we truly moving people through this more engaged relationship or not? Mm-hmm. Are people just interacting with us but no one's moving?
Right.
And does that really matter? If I'm not driving engagement, I'm not driving people to the next level, I'm not driving revenue. So right. I could be spending a lot of money, time, effort, resources to engage with a lot of people that may never move to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mike, you want to wrap things up for us here and share with folks what's going to happen post-webinar?
Absolutely. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Lori. Before we open up for questions, we have a few items we will be providing post-webinar. Right On Interactive just finished their Lifecycle ebook. It's being released for the first time to webinar registrants. Also, we will also provide a recording of the webinar in case you want to share it with any other team members or colleagues. Lastly, I would like to invite you to reach out to Lori or myself if you'd like a complimentary discovery session. We know everyone is in a different spot with their MarTech tools, and we'd be delighted to learn more about your business. And let's hand it over for questions.
All right, sounds good. It looks like we've got a few questions that have come in, so I'll read these off, and Troy, you can answer these, or I can help as well. So the first one is, can you tell me the difference between life cycle stages and opportunity stages in my CRM? That's really a good one. I get that question all the time. So how would you answer that?
I would say that in your CRM, you could have a company or an account, and they may have multiple opportunities, right? You may have 3 or 4 or 5 or 10, and that's a specific deal that you have. And those opportunities, they play into the macro view of lifecycle, right? So if it's a net new customer, maybe they bought one product, and maybe you might have 3 or 4 more opportunities for future products, but they would still be a new customer. Mm-hmm. Right, so it's part of the sales process with a specific deal that helps impact where they might be in the relationship, but they're not synonymous.
Got it. Okay. So there's a second question. Oh, this is a good one too. Since this is a business tool, who ultimately is logging into a lifecycle marketing tool? Typically, with marketing automation, it's just the marketers.
Do you want to take that, or do you want me to take it?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it, and then you can add color commentary if need be. So I think you're typically still going to have your marketers that are going to go in and build campaigns, but then the sales team is going to get their information typically from the CRM. So we'll push the data into Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics because you probably don't want your sales reps playing around in the tool where marketers are setting up campaigns, but your executive team absolutely will want to log into Right On because they would see the dashboards or they would want to see reports or those metrics that are on the lifecycle map.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, it's all about visibility and trying to provide that where they are, what tools they use. So either they could do it within the customer lifecycle marketing solution, or that data could be exchanged and pushed back to BI solutions, pushed back to other CRM solutions, different dashboarding applications that are out there.
Great. And then the last question is, what size company should use a lifecycle marketing tool?
Well, I think it's all companies should be thinking about lifecycle marketing, right? Not just the big companies and the established ones. You need to lay the foundation that you need to shift your focus from simply just lead gen to really the customer experience, and it needs to be both acquisition and retention. I often say, when's the best time to plant a tree?
When is?
20 years ago.
Right.
And when's the next best time, right? It's today. And so when's the best time to think about your customers? When's the best time to think about the customer experience? When's the best time to have your customers promoting you and and saying great things, and it's now. So instead of just looking at, I need a lead gen solution, which you definitely need a lead gen solution, you also need to have a customer engagement solution as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, any final words from you?
No, I think you did an excellent job covering the segmentation and lifecycle marketing. One point on this is that when you're bringing that data in, it is from multiple segments. So you can pull this in from existing customer bases, whatever it may be, existing ERP, accounting systems. You can pull it in via social. You can pull multi-databases in and then put them and plot them in the lifecycle management. It gives you a great business solution to look at the overall strategy of where your existing customers are and your prospects are through the lifecycle. That's the only point I think I saw in here, and I thought it was excellent.
Yeah, that's
Very
great.
nice.
That's great, Mike. Well, thank you so much again to the marketingIO team, and so we are delighted to have had everybody stay with us on the webinar today. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions or would like to reach out further, we would love to have some dialogue with you.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.